Hey everyone, we're going to go over some supplements, some additional nutrients for some of the endocrine disorders. You are looking in class at things like nutritional requirements for diabetics, how to match nutrient intake with insulin, and these are all essential if you're doing primary care. So this info on supplements I would consider supplemental, but useful to think about. So I just want to compare some of the products here and comment on it a bit. Here's a product from Integrative Therapeutics, Glycemic Manager. So glucose support formula. They have to use these structure function type of claims versus disease treatment claims on these labels for the most part. So this is for someone with prediabetes or diabetes, most likely non-insulin dependent or type 2. So what are they putting in here? We've got coenzymes or cofactors or vitamins that relate to central metabolism, right? So we've got our B complex, we have some methyl donors, so everything you need to run a happy Krebs cycle or do beta oxidation of fatty acids, that kind of thing. There's some magnesium too, and zinc and copper. What's alpha-lipoic acid doing here? Well, alpha-lipoic acid is an important antioxidant that is both fat and water soluble, and it seems to help protect nerves, peripheral nerves in particular, in diabetics. It's good for your cardiovascular system as well. So we also have bitter melon fruit extract, Mormordica charentea. So bitter melon seems to help with glucose levels, to lower them. I believe it also helps with insulin resistance, and there's some interesting new research on Mormordica showing that it might have a stroke, a protection against strokes. It might do something with vascular health, protecting cerebral arteries from infarction and things like that. And one of the great risks to diabetics is a greatly increased risk of cardiovascular disease. So bitter melon seems to help with insulin resistance and also do something to protect the vascular system. Gymnema leaf extract is another hypoglycemic agent. Now, here's a question. If you're taking these things that increase insulin secretion and hopefully, in the case of Mormordica, maybe restore some sensitivity to insulin, so get that GLUT4 receptor working and a bit better and help you use your insulin. If someone is taking metformin, is that going to be too much? The answer is they may start to notice that their blood sugar drops a bit too low, or that they're wanting their snacks more. If they are already over-medicated and they're getting hypoglycemia, yes, they should maybe have that looked at with their diabetologist or whoever prescribed those meds, and maybe start a little more slowly. They say 2 tablets daily with food here, which is really not a whole lot. If they're using insulin, and even though they call it non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus, eventually a lot of these patients end up having to use insulin. The meds just don't work anymore. Again, start slow and educate that person to carry some snacks around and be ready maybe to manage some hypoglycemia. None of these are going to cause blood sugar to totally plummet, but they are working in the patient's favor to restore some of that insulin sensitivity. And some of our patients are we are working with them to try to use diet and exercise and plant extracts and nutrition to move them out of diabetes, or they're pre-diabetic, their hemoglobin A1C is just about to cross the line, and we want them to get out of that state. And so in that sense, we're really not, you know, deep into years of type 2 diabetes, but really helping someone not cross the line. There's something like, 80 million people in the United States that are pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetic, and that's a lot. And plenty of people who could use help like this. Cinnamon bark extract. Cinnamon, again, helps to restore glucose tolerance. Myricetin from Myrica cerifera is another one. Choline bitartrate. Choline is protective to nerves and the liver as well, and the brain. And bilberry fruit extract would be there as an antioxidant, but specifically to protect the retina, and the retina is a vulnerable tissue for diabetics. Vanadium is a cofactor for some of the transport proteins that take glucose into the cell, and I don't know that everyone who takes the supplement needs extra vanadium, but it's a rate-limiting factor. It's a cofactor, so providing it makes sense. It's probably going to be beneficial to some. Here's Pure Encapsulation's glucofunction. So this is a little more streamlined product here, whereas, you know, this one has more stuff. So Pure Encaps, a little more focused. There's vitamin C, which is important. Vitamin C is a great antioxidant, and diabetics, I think because of the structural similarities between the ascorbate molecule and glucose molecules, diabetics sometimes don't uptake a lot of ascorbic acid into their cells. So for the vascular support, and then just to make sure that their vitamin C status is truly good, there's a bit of extra C. Biotin for blood sugar metabolism, metabolic support, as well as magnesium, zinc, chromium, along with vanadium, to help glucose tolerance factor, to help membrane proteins that they may be insulin regulated, but they're doing the heavy lifting of pulling glucose into cells. Chromium and vanadium are cofactors there. There's your alpha lipoic acid as antioxidant support to protect the nerves. And here is cinnamon, gymnema, and mormordica to help with, you know, restoring insulin sensitivity and maybe increasing insulin secretion a little bit. So this to me is a little more focused than the Integrative Therapeutics product, but they're both pretty good. What about the adrenals? We've got Gaia HPA Axis, which appears to be a completely herbal product here. So this is interesting. Here's rhodiola as an adaptogen, holy basil leaf, Asimum sanctum, and here's a proprietary extract blend. So a Venus sativa extract, which is a nervine, right? It supports the nervous system health. There's a holy basil extract, Schisandra extract. Schisandra has roots in Chinese medicine, and ashwagandha or Withania somnifera, which has roots in Ayurveda, but is a very good adaptogen, good brain tonic. So to me, this looks like an adaptogenic formula for support. What does this have to do with the HPA? Well, just think about the general adaptation syndrome or the stress response with, you know, cortisol secretion and adaptation, but eventually exhaustion, right? So this is supporting a person who is under stress. And some of these herbs, I think ashwagandha is one of them. Ginseng is one of them, which isn't in here. Licorice is one of them. Does seem to help the HP axis not undergo too many swings. So epinephrine levels to rise too dramatically, or cortisol levels in particular to rise and fall too dramatically, so they have a regulating effect. So the person's not on as much of an adrenal roller coaster, I guess, to put it in a metaphoric way. So these are some good adaptogens. Here's Vital Nutrients, which takes a different tack. Here's pantothenic acid, which I believe is important for making epinephrine. So synthesizing epinephrine from dopamine. So and probably the pantothenic acid is actually helping dopamine synthesis from tyrosine, the amino acid tyrosine. So you're helping with that chemical pathway. Here's adrenal bovine, whole and cortex. So why would they put in both? What's in the cortex? Of course, the cortex has the glucocorticoids like cortisol and some mineralocorticoids and some sex steroids, right? The medulla of the adrenal is more like a ganglion, essentially, and it has things like epinephrine. So they're giving you the whole gland, they're giving you the cortex. Here, again, are some great adaptogenic herbs, ashwagandha, and here's good old Siberian ginseng, or the Eleutherococcus senticosus, which is one of my favorites, great for fatigue, great for long-term stress. There's Cordyceps sinensis, mycelium extract. So this is a fungus. This is going to support the immune system, which might be depressed because of extended cortisol or hypercortisolemia, so lots of cortisol secretion because of stress that can start to depress immunity. But cordyceps also seems to have some adaptogenic function in some other way, as well as just supporting upregulating immune function. So a lot of the medicinal mushrooms do something besides upregulating immunity. Some help the liver, some regulate blood sugar. Cordyceps seems to be an adaptogen. So here's 3 adaptogens. I don't know how you feel about essentially organ replacement. I know that Standard Process has some excellent products with, organ extracts, and it's not clear from this label how much cortisol or epinephrine would actually be in this extract, or is it just the glandular tissues, the proteins, and what I know were traditionally called protomorphogens are in there. And that is a problem sometimes with dietary supplements, is they don't really tell you, does it have active hormone, or is it just a nutrient that has parts of the gland, which, some practitioners like. The use of organ therapy to support an organ goes way, way back in medicine. So there's something for you to consider. Here's Adrenotone from Designs for Health, which looks a bit like the other, but there's Panax squincifolius, American ginseng, probably grown in Wisconsin. That's a great adaptogen. There's some licorice extract, and again, good for toning the HPA axis. There's some tyrosine to support epinephrine synthesis, and there's some other cofactors as well. Ascorbic acid is also important for the adrenals, for these biochemical pathways. That's a pretty good product as well. Here's a thyroid support complex, and again, we have nutrients that are important for the synthesis of active thyroglobulin, activated T4 and T3. You've got tyrosine, you've got vitamin C, you've got iodine, you've got zinc, which is important. I do believe you also need zinc and selenium to make T3 from T4, and that is a problem for some people. They do not convert T4 to T3 very well, and T4 is fine, but you need a certain amount of T3. It's stronger, it's more potent, right? So this would support that. Here's some stress and what appears to me to be metabolic support. The turmeric, I'm not sure why that is in there. That's an interesting question for us to answer, but there's supporting metabolism, supporting T4 synthesis, supporting conversion of T4 to T3. There's another way of doing this as well. Similar product here with some Commiphora mucil in it, which is kind of cool. So there you go.